And that was the wrong intro. Here is the right intro. Here it is. I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. Well, should we do the right intro? Here we go. And now, welcome to Touch Base Daily. My name is Ron Foster, and I'm touching base with you as I always do. How are you guys doing? I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I see there's some folks in the building already, and yeah, it's another foggy. Look, I can now show you the windows. It is now foggy and rainy outside. It has just been this way for months in New York, and hopefully we'll get some real good some good weather. But they say a heat wave is on the way, and I do not like hot weather. I do not like it. I do not like weather above 82 degrees. So if it's above 82, then I am very unhappy outdoors. That's why I cannot live in the South. I cannot live in the South. The southern states are too hot for me. Anyway, so welcome. It is Touch Base Daily. It is Motivation Monday, and we are going to be talking about photography motivation as we always do every Monday. But also, there's a lot going on in the news since we last chatted, and so you can also put in there whatever's on your mind. I'm going to send some invitations out to some of my folks in case they want to pop on the screen, because that's how we roll here. And we have cool people in this community. So let me send those invitations out in case they want to pop on. Or at least they find the need to pop on. You know, there's some folks out there. And, you know, and so I'm just going through the roll call here. Anyway, sending it out to you now. I'm not gonna put Mr. Adrian on as well if he's out there somewhere and floating around in the world. And so I'm sending that out to you guys. So this weekend was a big weekend for those protesting. The No Kings March is now rated the largest protest in American history. The largest protest in American history. And it was massive all around the country. There were also some places around the world that participated, but it was an American event, and Americans showed up and showed out. And however, two people that were not there as much, but they were saying a lot of Black people did not show up still. There were some Black people out there, though. There were Black people out there more than the rest. But still some of us did not show up. Like I did not go out I did not march. I was going to go, but then I said, wait a minute, I'm too exhausted. I've been working on my apartment. As you can tell, it is now, I have my sitting area. I have been working overtime. I didn't go to bed till 2:00 Saturday morning. So I was like, nope, I'm not leaving this house. I was so exhausted. And then I had more work to do. So the brokers are coming in on this week to get their final approval. Well, kind of like give me some whatever they want to do here. And then on Friday, the photographer comes in and photograph the apartment. And then on Saturday or next week, the apartment goes on the market. I can't believe I'm saying it. I can't believe we're here. I can't believe that this is happening. And I'm glad, but I'm sad. I'm feeling both emotions at the same time. And so yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is. But it is progress. It is progress. Let me open up the door for these Instagrammers. You know, I used to like, oh my God, I gotta get the Instagram on the screen. But now I'm just like, if I get Instagram on, I get them on. I know that sounds horrible, but the Instagrammers, they pop in, they pop out. Most of the time, they're just scrolling through. This is just for those that need the reminder that are out there that we're on today. But for the most part, the Instagrammers, they don't care. They don't care. But who cares? Our YouTube family. Our YouTube family is here and always showing up because we are on YouTube. And that's where we live. And that's where the people that are committed to channels and people that are online, they make a commitment to show up. That's what I love about being on this platform every day. YouTubers, love you so much. Okay, let me put this last little data in here. And, so and while I'm doing that, if any subject you want to talk about, please put it in the comment box. Any subject that's going on, put it in the chat, put it in the box. Put it in the box so we can talk about it. Okay. And there we go. So now Instagram is in the building. Instagram is in the building. Well, not technically. Are they showing up? Is it showing up? Connect streaming software to go live. There we go. There we go. It's like my internet's a little slow today. Internet is a little slow today. Let's say some hellos first. Let's go to some hellos. Here we go. Hannah says, good morning, Ron and Touch Base Daily family. She is the first person in the building. And guess what? I figured out how to work my mic. Now I have to figure out all this new stuff with, I pulled out the plugs and everything. Now everything's working. My mic system is back. And GR Houston Jack says, good morning. I am Reese says, good morning. Touch Base Daily family. Aya's in the building. She says, Grand Rising Ron and everyone. Hannah's saying go to G and morning. All you guys are saying good morning to one another. Yes, I like posting all that stuff because this is a community. Wait, did I miss? Hey, wait a minute. Jazzy's in the building. Good morning, beautiful people, Jazzy says. And here we go. Who else is in the building? Who else is in the? Oh, it's Mr. Bryson. What's up, Ron? What's up, RLP fam? What's up, everybody? Happy Money Making Monday. Hope everybody enjoys Father's Day. Hope everyone enjoyed Father's Day. And I'm back home from North Carolina. Right, Bryson, you've been on the move in 2025. New York, North Carolina. Okay. I see you. I hear you. I see you, brother. And why am I quoting Instagram? Because there's still some people in Instagram. It's all about the PR. It's all about marketing and PR. That's all. That's all. Some people do look at it and they go, oh, I didn't know they had a channel. Oh, I'll pop over. So you got to be there so people can see you. That's why I'm there. And I'm not catering to them, but someone may pass by. It's like someone said, oh, that's a nice window in this. Macy's got a nice window this week. Let me go into the store. That's why I do it. That's why I still have my Instagram. And I see, hey, Chris is in the building. Mr. CB is in the building. Good morning, people, he says. Good morning. Kimmy is in the building. She says, good morning. It says, hello, everyone. And Kimmy brought us over the hill last night in our game night. And we were at just great. And then we didn't do Genius. We didn't get to Genius last night on our spelling bee. But Kimmy says she put her word in and we crossed over to Amazing. Thank you, Kimmy Kim. She always brings us home somewhere. She crossed us over to Genius a couple of times, and she's also found the panagrams. We have a good group out there that comes out on Sunday night, Wednesday nights, and Friday nights. Game night was there. Oh yeah, Kimmy says game night was hard last night, especially that connection. Connections was hard. That was a hard puzzle. But she says it was fun. We have a good time together. We do laugh. We do laugh and have fun. And so what did you guys do for your Father's Day? Happy belated Father's Day to all the people who are out there. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. All of the gents. And I always say, there are women who do both roles. And I always celebrate women who are doing both roles. They are father and mother. Now, I know you say, oh, it takes a man to be a father. But some women have to play both roles. And they do balance it well. And they do play the roles. They do work the roles. So, thank you to all those people that give fatherly love, committed to people, for them to grow, be nurtured, and become great people. We need great people to create and build and share great people. Okay, as I hear footsteps coming to the door. I do hear those footsteps. I know those footsteps. Those footsteps are familiar. Oh, the bell is working. The bell is working. And you know how we roll. Here we go. What's going on, Miss G? Lady G is in the building, y'all. Lady G.
Not much.
Traveling.
Not
Should I say
much.
traveling G? The traveling G, because this time last week you were on the road last week this time, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
You were on the road. Yes.
Yes.
You were behind the were you a passenger or were you behind the steering wheel?
You know what? I did not drive at all except for driving to Omaha for my own
Mr.
thing.
Jack took the wheel.
He took the wheel. He took the wheel. He was like, "Nope, I got it." I was like, "You sure?" He's like, "Hey." So
Mr. Jack took the wheel. He said, "Sister, you always drive it. I got you."
yeah. I'm good with
Jack. Mr. Jack, a shout out to Mr. Jack. He is the cool partner of this wonderful woman here. Anyways, so how was your week away? How was your week? And I mean, you popped on the show a couple of times, but how was your week? How was your time away?
The time away was good. We had a chance to celebrate his birthday, like I mentioned. We went to this restaurant, this Italian restaurant, and there were a lot of old people there. Forgive me when I say that, but I mean some old people, like sparkly canes. And I thought, okay.
Like old people.
So yeah, but we wanted to get out early so we can get back because we had a bottle of champagne to celebrate. We don't want to drive out of state with any kind of alcohol in our system. You know what I mean? So we had that blue plate special. So yeah. Yes, indeed. There were some different people in the restaurant at that time. I was like, dang, is it really that early? But yeah, it was great. It was also great to meet some people who I interacted with or network with virtually to see them in person. So that is always a plus as well.
And did you get your famous B-rolls?
I did. I got a little bit. Of B-roll.
This girl don't go anywhere without getting some B-roll.
I got a little bit, not too much. I didn't really, I brought the cameras, but I didn't do too much, believe it or not. I mean, time went by so fast. So, I mean, you do what you do. You do what you do. But it was great. It was really good.
You do what you want to do.
In living color.
That's such a good song. That's so good. It's such a good song.
It was great. It was great, actually. It was genius. But I want to go back to your question, or I should say your statement, because I have a question. I see who is that? Chris talked about it. Roles. When you say like parents play both roles, or women play, or some parents play both roles.
They play both. Same with the fathers. On Mother's Day, some of the fathers play both, but technically speaking, both roles.
Okay, so here's my question, because I'm currently working on a podcast topic of gender roles. What exactly
That's
is
right,
the
you
role of
are.
the? I am.
That's right, you are. I remember you mentioned
I
that.
am right. So I'm deep in it. I am deep in it. So I had to question, like, what is the role of the mother or the father? Because what's the role?
I don't.
Is it not just being a parent? I mean, I'm generally asking because when I think about my dad is the one who taught me how to cook. He was in the kitchen. Mother did yard work. So they were opposite of what society says a woman's role is and what a man's role is. So I'm like, so
Mm,
what exactly is the role?
that's a good question. You know, I only know of what we were taught as growing up, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily correct. So if you start analyzing that stuff, because in today's world, um, those roles are mixed anyway, in a lot of cases, because the majority of homes. I gotta go back to stats. Okay, I gotta remember the stats. I can't even go with the majority. I will say a lot of families in America, or a lot of children are raised in single parent homes, either female parent or male parent. I I have run into many male parents today that are single parents and they're raising their kids, which when I was a kid, it was usually the women that were raising the kids, and it was very rare that you
Mhm.
saw a male figure being the only parent, while the wife or the old girlfriend or the mother is still alive. That was when
Yes.
we were growing up. Now it's I wouldn't say it's the norm, but it is definitely. I have about 3 or 4 friends that are raising children by themselves as men.
Yeah,
So
I asked that because okay, so my neighbor across the street, we were talking about this, and her son has custody. And the woman who gave birth to his kids has 2 other kids. Those men also have custody of their child, right?
yeah.
So at the moment I am researching how many single father homes are there, but also how many at-home fathers there are because there are more women who go for post-secondary education than men. And a good chunk of them make more
Hmm.
money than their partner. And it's just easier if you want to save on childcare for that person to stay at home. And typically that's men. I knew some people back in the 90s who had that. When
Mm.
Continental Airline was still Continental Airline, there was a dear friend who worked part-time. He was an at-home father. Okay,
Yeah.
so he was the one who stayed at home, worked part-time at the Container Store, and his wife who made mad bank. She was the one who brought home the bacon. She didn't even cook it. He cooked it. So I go
Yeah.
back to like the whole idea of what exactly is the role, because I mean, I think about like my mother, parents are parents. So it's every day's a day to celebrate your parent. But we're
Hmm.
still in this thing of, well, a man does this and a woman does this. Like, I don't know. I
That's
mean,
a good,
like,
you bring up a good point because we've heard many times. I mean, this is, on Father's Day or Mother's Day, the, I've heard growing up was that okay, if the single mom was there, she's playing both roles. So that was a traditional thought in my mind because that was what I was taught. But you caused me now to say, let me reevaluate
mhm,
because in today's world, it is a different ball game.
mhm.
And it was when when I was growing up, we didn't have women basketball teams. We didn't have women softball teams. We didn't have women baseball teams. We didn't have women firemen. We didn't have women bus drivers. And so now in today's world, the roles are very dynamic, as in what is the role? I mean, when you really think about this is a good subject. What
I
are the
always have good
roles?
subjects. I'm
I know
always doing
you,
my work. I
yeah,
mean, I'm still doing,
because you are that one that does.
I
That
like to
little
kick up some
that
dust. I mean,
emoji
kick
with
up some dust.
that little yellow emoji that has this. That's
That is me.
Gwendolyn. That's the emoji, the Gwendolyn
But
emoji. But it's a I haven't even pondered the thought until you just mentioned it. is like, and then in today's world, for instance, I remember many weekends. See, this is Clinton Hill. So Clinton Hill here, Clinton Hill, Fort Greene, this area, a lot of news anchors live here, and doctors and lawyers and all these professions.
Okay.
But I would see on Saturdays the men with the baby carriages and moving. And when you go to Fort Greene Park or you move around the neighborhood, it's the men with the children going, doing all the, doing the thing, which when I was growing up, that was not something you saw normally. But now everybody is the parent.
Well, yeah. I mean,
what I'm saying is that, for instance, when Adrian was younger and Adrian used to go play softball, his mother was always at the games. She was always there to support him in the games, go to the baseball game, go to the sport game, wherever the games were, she was there to support. Right?
Yes.
And you think about the gender roles are so. Should we call it the gender roles? But the gender roles are no more definition, because you have executives. For instance, my buddy, one of my other good friends, happily married, beautiful wife. She's an executive for one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Who takes care of the kids? He does. He raises the kids. He takes them to school. He feeds them. He makes sure they have their baths. He makes sure all that's going on. Meanwhile, she's making the bucks. She's the one making the bucks for the household. She is he has a job, but his job is nowhere the executive of a pharmaceutical company, one of the biggest ones in the world. I mean, so the world is so different from now that I'm sitting here thinking about all this, the world is so different. So throwing out that statement may sound a little ignorant.
I don't know if it's
in today's
ignorance.
world.
I don't know if it's so much as ignorant
when I say
or
not negative, I mean ignorance of our environment and the world we live in. I'm sure in other countries it may apply, but in America, there aren't those gender roles have changed drastically. I know there's some people in America don't want it to have happen. Like, this is the reason why we want to go back to. There's some people that, not us. There are some people that want to go to take Project 2025 and reverse all of this stuff, because they want the women back in the kitchen. They want the women back in making babies and doing nothing. So for them, it's too much.
There is that one. Here's my point of looking at gender roles and also programming for young men and boys as they grow, is that the way that we work and live has changed. And there are some people who have not caught up. But if we consider our word choice, we ourselves are not always aware of what we're saying when we're saying it. You're like, is there really a role? Is there really any kind of gender attached to a particular role? If you're a parent, you're a parent. You do what needs to be done, whether it's one of you or two of you, no matter how it happens, whether you guys were together, one night stand, someone passed away, whatever it is, but you still take care of your kids. So is it really a gender role that men only do this, women only do that? Is like, look, that was something that society created some time ago to keep certain people in a particular spot. We ain't there anymore. We're not there. So why are we still holding on to things that don't actually fit the way we work and live and play today? Like, why is that? Why is that? And for those who want to stick to it, why? Okay, so prime example, we know that most women run the household. We know numbers and everything. Mr. Jack will tell you, if you come up to this door to sell something, you're not talking to him, you're talking to me, because I know the numbers. Gwendolyn knows those numbers. It's like, and if it don't work out, it ain't happening, Captain. Like,
because
if it's
Mr.
not
Jack has said, if I may interject here, Mr. Jack has said, go speak to her.
He does on a consistent basis. He's like, I don't know nothing about that.
Go speak to her.
and not because I'm the woman, but in terms of how
Yes.
we operate, Mr. Jack, he was just like, oh, it's on auto payment, so who cares? It's like, what is the current rate of that electricity? Because
Mm.
Gwendolyn doesn't live that life. I need to know what the rate is, what's X, Y, and Z, how much this and this costs. Like, it's not his deal. I would send the man to the grocery store. I said, babe, get me some orange juice, get me some eggs. He comes back with Eggland's best eggs. We don't, no. He comes back with Simply Orange Juice. Partner, there is a store brand, and it's the same OJ, okay? We ain't got to be doing Eggland's best eggs. Like, or organic kale. No, not for the rabbits. We had rabbits at that time. I said they don't need that. They just need kale. They don't need organic kale. So like we have to step back and say, okay, how are we actually living? And in terms of what we're sharing with those who are coming up, what does that message look like? Because there is still that idea of the man runs the household and men do this. And it's like, isn't that how we got to this spot?
Isn't
This
how we got into this problem?
masculinity? Isn't that
But
how we got here?
here's another. I mean, there's the dynamics of the family are so different to just 20 years ago. I mean, you think about one of my friends, he and his husband are raising children.
Okay.
I think they have 3 kids.
Mhm.
And you wouldn't say, oh, one is being the female and one is being the male. No, both are being.
However, we know that for people who have a heterosexual persuasion, they work really hard to figure out who's who. They push that. They do. I mean,
which one's the man? Which one's the woman?
If you were to do a survey, if you talk to
true.
some heterosexual couples, they would ask, okay, so who's the guy and who's the girl in the marriage? That ain't even it. That's not even it, but they go there.
Yes. Same thing with the young lady that was the lady that was singing last night at they did a whole dedication to the Beach Boys last night, I think it was. And they had one of the young ladies, she's married to a wife, and they have a family. So you think about all the diverse family structures in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in the day, how many of you remember the TV series on HBO called 6 Feet Under?
I remember. I didn't watch it.
6 Feet Under was really a good show. But in the final episode, because one of the characters was gay, and he falls in love with someone. And then what they do is one of the best endings to a season series finale, one of the best that have ever been done. And what makes it so amazing is that they speed everyone's life into the future. So you see them as they are today, but then it speeds all the characters' lives up into the future. And in the future, the gay character is married to a man, right? And they have a family. And now, I mean, that must have been the ending of 6 Feet Under, must have been 15 years ago. Maybe it was 15, maybe more. But look at where we are today. It is now the norm. If you live in an urban setting, and even some resident, country settings, it is now the norm. Even though they want to reverse that again. So you think about all the different types of family structures. I want to also, here's something that 2 people said. Kaz says, in today's time and day, it should be more about the person and the values they instill, not just titles and labels. And also, I put the wrong one. It was Mr. Let me go back to Chris. Chris said, he said this: it's the village in practice, not who's supposed to do what. I mean, I'm loving this. I'm loving this feedback. Jazzy says, and I heard her footsteps, so I'm going to answer the door for her in a moment. Jazzy says, it's a question that has to be asked for sure. And from a perspective of growing up in a single parent household, I think there is a little bit of a myth behind gender roles in the household. You taking notes, Gwendolyn? This is
I
great for
am
your
taking
research.
notes, but I'll also add that, my daughter has a wife as well, right? And they have
Yes.
their 2 kids, right?
Yes.
And being able to sit amongst their friends, they're just parenting. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
Chris interviewing her, and he said, it's not that you're a gay parent, you are just a parent. You're a
A
loving
parent.
parent. There is no sexuality attached to it. It's like, I'm just a parent who loves their kids. This is where we are. We didn't even talk about the grandparents who have to raise the kids because of whatever the situation is. Could be that the parents pass away in an accident or something, or it could be
Mm-hmm.
something else.
Mm-hmm.
But there are grandparents who have raised kids. Like, our family dynamic, the idea of how you define family is not what it was when we were putting this sort of picket fence idea on TV. And I literally saw those picket fences in Omaha. I was like, look at this right here. Look at this. I mean, brother had a picket fence. I was like, is that real? It was real. It's
It
like
was
yay tall. And I'm
picket
thinking, if
fences are
I was talking
real.
about him, he would so hear me, because it's literally the white picket fence. I said, oh my goodness, this is something that I got a picture of, because I thought, I have never seen such things.
Here's something. Kimmy says, I think that acknowledges the single parent is taking on a task that is designed for 2 people to manage.
Now that's interesting, because I don't
Now
know.
that's
Is it
interesting
designed
thought.
for 2 people to manage? Is it? Was it designed
Maybe.
that way? I'm asking.
I
Like,
don't know.
I know it takes 2 to make it, but
Mm,
is it designed for 2? I think about a friend who is in a relationship where he and his wife are not in a loving relationship. So they're
mhm.
in the house. Their idea is, once the kids get older, we'll separate. But guess what? Until that time, your daughters are seeing how you love them, but they're not seeing how you love their mother
Mm,
and what love looks like, right? In
mhm.
terms of a healthy relationship. They're not getting that message. So is it really designed for 2, or could it be that an entire village raises a child?
Hello, that's me. I am the product of the village.
Yeah.
Both my parents were in their own ways MIA.
Mm.
However, my aunt, my godmother, the candy man downstairs, the candy store owner, the cleaners guy downstairs, my mother's boyfriend, all these people, and my cousins who used to get on a train and pick me up and bring me out to Long Island, Queens, and all this stuff. I mean, I am a product of the village.
Yeah.
I am truly my parents, and I've talked to my parents about this, so it's not that they were so into their own individual worlds, and there was also the lack of knowledge of parenting
Mhm.
on their part, that it took a village to raise my sister and I. And my pastor adopted me as his son, and really taking me into that family structure where his mom called me her grandson, his wife called me her son. I had my own room in their house. When I used to hang out there, I would go up to the room. I had my own room upstairs. It takes a village. So there's all these structures. And here's another one. I love this. This is a good conversation. Gwendolyn, I tell you, like the fire. Taz says, when do both you do sacrifice time for self, but make the time happen for self in some way, even if it is the small things, because it adds up to big things.
Mm.
So she's talking about how the input is. And Chris says, I love this, Chris. It's the BS visual of what we have been fed as to the way we are supposed to be.
Love that. Two things. One,
Woo!
it is a BS visual. Two, the key word there is suppose, like suppose
Supposed
and
to be.
should. You know, when people use those words, that is putting your belief on somebody else. You should be doing this. I ain't got to do nothing that
Mm,
don't make sense for me.
mm.
Plain and simple, right? So when you take that approach to it, and you know, you and I have had this chat on why
Oh,
we're
there's some
so
people gathered
concerned.
in the doorsteps. I think it's Elise
Who's
and
coming
and
in?
and
Someone's at
Jazzy.
the door?
Jazzy, I think they're in the building at
What?
the door. Oh, there's Jazzy. I mean, there's Elise and there's Jazzy.
Oh.
Oh, I think they got something to say. They didn't travel all this distance to be on our doorstep without having something to say on a Monday.
Good morning.
Good.
Hi.
Good
Um,
morning.
I actually came to say just what Chris just said. I think it's something that we are fed to believe, right? Like,
Mm.
and it's not to say because I'm a product of a single parent household, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you grow up in this mindset of you have to have all of these people around you in order to feel complete, right?
Yeah.
But when I look at my life, I'm like, I am complete.
Mm-hmm.
I was not raised with my mom and my dad in the home, but I am complete, right? And for me, it was more the village that was around me because I might not have had that in my household, but I had examples of it in my life around me. And I think sometimes, like, I remember when we were little, we used to give my mom Father's Day gifts. And I remember one year my mom was like, well, I'm not your dad. And we were like, yeah, but you're
Mm.
like our dad. And she was just like, we were like, you're our mom and our dad. And she was like, no. She was like, I'm your mother. And she was like, and that's okay. And she was like, and I want to be celebrated on Mother's Day because that's what I am to you. I'm your mother. She's like, I'm not your dad and I can't replace him. And
Mm.
it was something that was like, at the time, I was like, I don't understand. Just take the gift. You know what I mean? But the older I've gotten, I kind of understand it more where it's like, I feel like you're supposed to, or it's like this thing of like trampling on something that's not there to make sure that you feel complete in it when it's like no, she really was just our mom, and that's okay because she was full in who she was as our mother. And I think that sometimes we don't view it from that perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm just like, it's okay to celebrate just your mother on Mother's Day and let men have their day as fathers and be that. You know what I mean? You don't have to celebrate the mother on Mother's Day or the mother on Father's Day because that's the only person in your household. It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
just have your mother.
And
So I
celebrate
don't know.
her.
I think this is something that we're taught like to feel like we're missing something because if we're really being
Mm.
honest too, in two-parent households, there is the dominant parent in that household that really is the end all be all in that household. It's not to say that the other person doesn't help or assist, but it is to say, like, okay, they're not there because they're at work, because they're not present, because whatever it may be. So, and the more I talk to people that are in two-parent households, the more I see that. I personally used to avoid, like, when I was younger, I used to avoid having friends that had two parents because I always felt like I was missing something. So I
Mm-hmm.
would like
Mm-hmm.
avoid it. And then it came to a time where I was just like, it doesn't matter. Like, like they are just, because I was always felt like, oh, I can't compete with that, or I don't, I'm not living up to what they have, right? And then I remember one of my friend's parents was like, you're just as good with your mom as my kid is with all of us. You know what I mean? He was like, we are all together. We're family together, right? We're in community with each other. So that makes you it. I don't replace anybody in your life, but I'm still here. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes you just need that. It's more about the village than anything else. So I
Well,
don't know.
when you think about it, and Lee's and I have had this conversation because I'm always blown away, and I'm glad she popped on in this discussion. And if you're in the building, make sure you hit the likes because that's how the algorithms know. That's how they know that we are on, and this discussion is great. Um, Lee's talks about the role of her dad, and every time she tells me more about what her dad did in raising her and her family, I'm like, because when we, growing up in a particular era, it was that part of what men did was never showcased. We didn't. I mean, society didn't showcase it. But Elise is here. She's gonna tell me more about her situation. Go ahead, Elise. Good morning, Elise.
Hi, everybody. I signed in a little late to see everything, but when you all started talking about this part, I was like traditional roles and all that kind of stuff. I was like, let me come up the sidewalk. So my story is, and I've said it before, my mother left when I was 3. So thinking about what Jazzy said, I didn't know to miss a mother. I didn't know to miss having 2 parents in the household. I really didn't. So thing, you don't miss what you never had. I saw them because I had a community. I had a family, my family at large. There were aunts and grandmothers and cousins and in their 2-parent households and everything. I saw that, but I never felt different because my father was just in my mind, such a great father. He did everything. And he never missed a birthday. My mother rarely ever said happy birthday to us once we did it in community with her. And so I didn't grow up thinking, hey, this is what the norm is. My norm was what does happy look like? What does it feel to enjoy being in a house? And that's what my father created. We danced together. We did all those things, and he did everything that he needed to do. You never missed a meal. You never knew that you didn't have a whole lot of money. And all the time he was working 2 jobs, right? So and I had my older siblings because I was the youngest one, and they did what they needed to do. Although, when I reflect on my older sister, how much childhood did she miss? Because she started doing that at the age of 12. And so as I got older, just to think about what it means to be family. I used to do wedding cakes. And the one thing I used to tell everyone, especially the bride, don't start doing stuff that you don't want to do for the rest of your life. And then the whole excuse that people use excuses in relationships, and children are usually the excuse, right? And I was thinking about this, and I wrote about it the other day. When people say we're going to stay together for the children, they're not staying together for children. They're staying together for appearances. Those children aren't learning how to have good relationships in houses filled with bad relationships. They're not learning how to communicate effectively. I've seen it. I've had friends. I had a friend who did it for over 30 years. He was miserable for over 30 years,
Yeah, that story. That story is a sad story. Woo.
It's a very sad story.
Sad story.
For over 30 years. And they were genuinely just miserable, really, trying to get to the point where somebody said thank you, somewhere somebody said I love you, and then doing all the things, buying the bigger house, giving the jury, doing all of this stuff, and even taking care of them until they died, and still calling me after that and say, she never said. I was like, wait a minute, we still holding on. And my reality was, I told Ron this story. I told him not to marry the day before they got married. I was 9 months pregnant, told him don't do it. I was like, step away from it. And then, talking to some friends recently who I see that same vision happening. Also, it's like, well, it's my, I guess I give my mother credit. She never stayed any place for children.
Really?
I started with my household with the 6 kids. And then later on, when I was older and she broke up with the other guy that she had been living with from the time I met him when I was 10, nothing was for the children. Whatever it was going to benefit her at the end. It didn't matter to her. And I hear people, and I sometimes what I start processing is you're holding this child almost like a tether to that person. That's not fair to the child. Well, the child has a relationship. I don't care. The child may have a relationship, but you're also using the child, whether you think you're being a great parent or not to that child, you're using that child. And you're showing the child what dysfunction is.
Can I interject? It's interesting because when you shared that story, one of my buddies, he has a very close friend that I met him and he knew that he was a gay man when he was younger, and to the story, he told his wife before he married her then they realized, I mean, they had several kids together. They had what they called the classic looking,
Right.
beautiful
Family's supposed to look like.
family looking of that day and the era. And then, but again, it's the same story, 30 years.
Yeah.
They
Right.
went in a marriage for 30 years. And then he finally, 2 years ago, said, I want to be me.
Right.
But for 30 years, they had their, obviously they weren't getting along for many, many years. After the first 2 or 3 years, I mean, obviously they were having kids along the way, but they were not in love with each other. I said, for 30 years. And when he said this, it was like, my brain was like, I mean, I know it happens, but when someone actually says it happened, you're just like, how do you stay in a marriage? And this is another topic for another, this is another one for Gwendolyn's research. but having those parent roles, like we're talking about, but then some people felt like I need to stay in this relationship, even though it's miserable, because I want to make sure I give the role of being the father, or being the role of being the mother. Because if I don't be the role of being either those two people, one of the people that they think they're supposed to be, to stay in the marriage, their children would be ruined.
I think that society still plays a big part in why people do that. Like whether it's, I don't know, how you define roles. In my house, if there was something to be put together, I did it. There was a negotiation about what happened in the air conditioners, windows. My husband, if they would come to the table, he said, look, you need to talk to her. Because I was the one that was up on that kind of stuff. He did a lot of things, but he was like, okay, that's not me. That's not a conversation with me. That's a conversation with her. So it wasn't about, because the way you were treated when people would come to the house, like when we getting our air conditioners put in here, this house, they were talking to him. Both of us needed to be there, they said, but their conversation was with him. And he turned to them and said, I don't know why you're talking to me. You need to talk to her, because she's the one that has the most information about that. And it was always inevitably that case. And I'm sure, Gwendolyn, you run into that's what they think. If you take a car in, it's like the man comes in and they want to talk to the man. It was like, so when we had a van, I would take the van to the car dealership. They hated to see me coming more than they hated to see him.
You told me that one time.
You were in my brain, Miss Elise, because I thought about when I bought my last vehicle. I went in, the hubs came with as just a person to sort of see the car as well. Right. But I had my own list of what was going down. I came in purposely not to purchase, just to do a test drive. And they kept talking to him. And he was like, you need to talk to her if you want to sell this car. And I said, bro, I'm not buying a car tonight. I'm not doing it. They had 3 salespeople. And they had the guy who was the manager. He's like, what can we do to get you in the car? It's like, well, you can give me the keys. Like, that's easy. However, if you want to sell it, it ain't happening, because you're not even like listening to me. Like, really? Right. Now, I did buy the car the next day, because I really But in that moment, the whole thing was, is he buying the car for you? No, Gwendolyn has her money. I'm going in to buy a vehicle. I am the person buying this car. But when people would see it, they were like, oh, so your husband bought you a new vehicle? No, Gwendolyn bought herself a new vehicle. So there's
Isn't that interesting? Can we go back to that? Can you go back to say that statement? Because
about what? About the husband buying my car?
Yes. I mean, the perception, but
that somebody had to get permission for me to get a car.
Yeah.
That I had to have someone's money to get a car? Yes. Yeah, that is still there. But if I may just do one thing, Ron, there was a comment from Kim Kimmy that I believe is also, I think was amazing. She talked about how kids identify with 2 parents.
Yes.
And so my sister was talking to me about my niece, right? And she was just saying that, there's messaging about gay couples that are out here. Now, she knows that my daughter has a wife, all right? She knows that. She's like, but there's this messaging. I said, but the messaging of Donna Reed, June Cleveland, everybody else, that's messaging too. that we should be in the kitchen with heels on and a dress and an apron and caring for everybody else beyond ourselves. So when kids identify with something, that's from education, that's a messaging somewhere, right? So my grandkids don't know two parents that are male and female. They don't know that life. They don't know it. So when I think about where they're going to go to school, well, okay, so there's just the one because the other kids are, he's in college. But when I think about what they're going to hear, what she's going to hear, there should be two people who's male and female. And she's like, my mama and my mama are in the house. What does that say to me?
Right.
Right. So like we have to get rid of this, I hate to say it, archaic idea or definition of what family is and what parents should look like. You are a mother and a father, but the role itself of parenting is just be a parent.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's like, your parents, right? So even when it comes to the whole thing, when you watch these shows, just wait till your father get home. My kids were afraid for me. They didn't worry about their father. I told Ron, my daughter told guys who were talking to her, don't be afraid of my father. You're gonna be afraid of my mother. And I think that,
well,
and that
my
was okay.
mama.
And it wasn't a role. It was parenting. My husband, I was gonna say who he is, and I'm who I am. And that's the difference. And a part of that came from, I tell everyone, a part of me came from being raised by a single father. Especially in my formative years, from the age of 3 to 10, I was raised in that house by that single father. And I had women, my grandmothers, as I call my big mamas, and my aunts, and everyone were around me. And I saw uncles and all of those males out there. But I also picked up how household looked from my father. I understood, and I have siblings who have stayed in some bad marriages too. And one was my sister-in-law one day was talking to me about my brother, and I told her, I said, look, this is the last conversation. You're either gonna stay with him or you're gonna divorce him. Pick one. I said, but however, don't talk to my niece anymore about your problems, because those are your problems. And my niece said to her one time, she said, you all would have done us a favor if you just hadn't stayed together. And sometimes when parents are using these children as their excuses,
it's an excuse.
Sometimes it's societal. Sometimes it's almost like, I'm gonna stay because I'm punishing. You're not punishing anyone. And you're definitely not doing it for your children. I promise you that what I've heard people say and how they, no, stop it. Stop lying. Stop lying to yourself. Stop using your children for that.
Wow. When people do that, they're doing it for society. They're not doing it.
They're doing it for the society.
Because they're doing it for the societal
perception
way that they were going to be looked at. Yeah, for the perception of it all. Because for me, same thing. I have seen people stay in situations where it has been very detrimental to the kids, to the point where they have grown up and had to kind of unlearn how to receive love the way that they were shown love. Or they don't understand fully how to experience love and what it really looks like, because they've learned how to see it in a way where it's like, okay, it's presenting as this, but now I have to show up in the world in one way, but I've been taught another way. You know what I mean? And I think like a lot of times when people say, well, that's where you learn your love from, like with me, growing up in a single parent household with a mother, right? It's like, well, how do you show, or how do you have love, and what do you know what love looks like from men, right? And I'll be honest, that is something that I don't have, right? That was in front of me face to face daily, on a daily basis. But I also can say, like, there are people around me that I've seen, and I've seen in successful marriages, right? And I've seen people around me that have marriages that have not been so successful, right? So I can model off of those experiences. But I think a lot of times where it's like, I'm going to stay together for this. I said, well, don't you think that these kids can feel the tension of you? Like if you're going around mad all the time and you're in your household feeling lonely within yourself, or you're in a household where you don't like your partner, and then now I'm having to show up and not like this person and pretend, where if you can go off and be happy and create your happiness individually and show how you can co-parent, which is lost on society in today in general. I think that's the thing that's lost. They're looking at it as, let's stay together so we can get this perception across, instead of saying, okay, I want to co-parent. I want to set up a healthy co-parenting environment for my child, so they know that what love feels like without us being together, and showing that person that even within us being separated, we can still show up for you and show up for ourselves as individuals, and learn how to love as individuals and loving you. And I just think that, you know, I think you're seeing it now a little more, where it's kind of like, okay, you can do that. But I just think that sometimes we are taught to believe that if you're together, then everything's going to work out. No, it's not. I've seen more damaged people out of two-parent households than I honestly have seen out of single-parent households.
This is very true.
And it's not even because the two-parent household is trying to. I think we all don't acknowledge that, like, we're still learning. You know what I mean? Like, we're still learning how to be. And if you come from a single-parent household, you're modeling after something in some ways where you're like, okay, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I think this is how I'm supposed to show up. But if you come from a two-parent household, sometimes I have heard my friends say that have had both of their parents. They're like, oh yeah, I would never want to do this because I've seen my parents do this. Right? Yes. I don't want to be that. Right. Because I've seen my parent do that.
I've seen
that happens all the time.
It happens a lot of times. I have a lot of friends. I think in some ways, I mean, you know, after having major conversations and talk and consultation and all that stuff, the reason why I stay single is because of my parents. My parents were the part of the reason psychologically deep down that I did not realize was I looked at them and said, I will never be married. I will never do it because of their relationship and how they were so, you know, whatever.
Right.
And so I realized in a lot of ways that was all. Sometimes it's a trauma, and the kids don't even know they're going through the trauma. And then it doesn't come out until you're an adult and you realize, and you look back over it through consultation and say, this is why you made that decision. But sometimes we don't realize why we make the decisions that we make. I remember, like I said, we were in the car. My mother was like, oh, you know, when you gonna get married and have kids? It's like I was like in my 20s or 30s, maybe it's like late mid-20s. And I was like, I'm never getting married. Never. I said, I'm not getting. And also because I watched all of my peers, I said my mother's peers and my father's peers, all of them were divorced and all of them were having problems. And this one was an alcoholic and this one was that. And all of these things were happening as these adults around me, you know, the good and the bad and the ugly, because there was good adults, but there were some bad ones too. And I realized, it's better for me just to be single because I can just carry my own load, because I'm not carrying anybody else's load if I can't get my own load together. And it's just, you know, it's amazing how we are influenced as kids by the parents we have, or the environment we have, or the village we have. You know, some villages are not good villages. Also, always remember not every village is a good village.
Yeah,
if you have a village of carnivore, cannibals, I should say. If you have a village of cannibals, you may not want to hang out in that village, right? And you may be eaten, you may be taken away, you may be bones after that by the end of the year. I make fun of it, but every village is not great either.
So, Ron, I want to talk a little bit about what you said about trauma.
Yes.
Because that was a part of and I think I shared it that was a part of my friend's issue. So his father left the family, the mother and with the two boys. He has a brother. He didn't want to be his father. He stayed, and I told him, like, when his wife, so when they were having some issues, I said, let me tell you, if you tell her that, she's going to get pregnant again. And she did. So, but the whole thing was, it was all trying not to be his father. That's what our childhood traumas do. And like the same thing for me, my biggest thing, probably overdoing and not taking it as much, paying enough attention to myself along the way, was making sure I wasn't my mother, that I didn't neglect my children, that I didn't miss parts of their life like she missed parts of mine. So we all carry that trauma with us, and society, our environment traumatizes us, and sometimes we don't recognize it. So it's that fear. Sometimes it's a trauma and the fear connected with it. If I go here, I'm going to be like that. And sometimes it does keep people from even wanting to be in a relationship. The fear of abandonment and all kinds of things, the fear of trauma, and then looking at, my husband and I have been together a long time, and I'm sure my children have, none of them are married or anything. So I always say, man, what is it something that they saw in us? Or it's like Gwendolyn said, it's like things where it's like, oh no, I don't want to deal with that, because I've seen how things work. I say, you see my children see their father open the door all the time. He does all these things, right? And does that make them look at people and say, oh, well, no, that's all for me. So I'm not going to do that.
But also, Elise, like we've had this conversation, it could be, I mean, they're saying in society, I mean, the stats are saying that Generation X, and as Generation X goes down to the millennials and all the way down, are into less relationships, less sex, less connections, less. And so it may have nothing to do. I mean, think about it. You have you and your husband are amazing. You're together. You're supporting roles and all that other stuff, and being there and funny and then they just say, you know what, my parents are great, but the people around me, their parents aren't. So it could be many reasons.
Right. And that's part of what people also have. It can be a challenge out there. Yeah. Sometimes when you hear people, it is always like you're in this circle, like, oh, I'm trying to find this person, but y'all sitting there and you're telling each other how you great. And it's like, but apparently you're not looking for that. You're looking for something different, something that
one of my buddies
really not clear.
One of my buddies always talks about how he wants a girlfriend, right? He's and he's like, every time we go out, he's like, oh, look at her, blah, 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 blah. And we just talk, we're just chatting, right? And then I said, and so he's, we'll be at some place, and he starts talking to the girl. He's like, hey, he's trying to rap to her and everything. And then we walk away, and then he says, I didn't get her number. I said, this is your situation every time. I said, how do you get into these conversations with these girls? Beautiful girls, great conversations. And then you don't get their number. And then when you get the number, you don't call them back. I said, you know what? I said, we've been doing this game for 20 years. I said, you know what? Deep down, you don't want to be married. He keeps saying he wants to be married. But I said, we've been going through this shuffle and this conversation for more than 20 years. We've been friends for 40 years. I said, for half our friendship, this has been your MO. I said, dude, you ain't interested in no marriage. Yeah. She's my marriage material. Blah, blah, blah. I said, you done gone through 100 marriage materials over the last 20 years. And, but again, I'm sure that if he went to therapy, he might discover that there's something that happened in his past, or a child, or something he observed. Yeah. Or it could have been a movie. It could have been. It's amazing the things that impact our psyche as children and as young adults. It's just teenagers, preteens, and all that, and how those things get trapped in us. And we haven't released them, and they cause havoc in our future and as we grow up and become adults.
It happened to me all the time as a child. It's like I saw my siblings get into stuff and they got a certain consequence. I was like, I'm never doing that. So I'm the one that learns from observations.
Yeah. I'm an observer learner. Yeah.
I'm not trying that.
I think there's
talk about that.
Go ahead,
so I think there's two things going on with that.
And then we're going to close out because we got to close out and do motivation Monday.
Yeah. So I think what you're seeing now is there's like a weird trauma response because a lot of people in my sphere, right? A lot of my peers, it was either they grew up with two-parent households or there's so many that didn't grow up in two-parent households at all because of the kind of climate we grew up in, right? And I think there's that fear there of, one, we don't know what we're doing in a lot of ways, right? And I feel like there's this weird thing where it's like we want to talk to people and we want to have that conversation there, but we don't even know how to start the conversation because now in this world of social media, it's like, find somebody online. We're all in our house. The people that want relationships, they're at home. I always laugh. Like, I always laugh at this. I'm single and I was like, okay, yeah, I want to have somebody and I want to find somebody. And I'm just like, well, if you don't go online and you don't leave your house, where are you finding this person? You know what I'm saying?
True. Very
That's
true.
our conversation every time, Jazzy.
The Cracker Jack box.
You see what I look like right now.
I know, get the Cracker Jack box.
Like, I be in here chilling, like, hey, like, and sometimes I laugh because I'm just like, yeah, like, where would I find this magical person? Because I'm not going to the club. I'm too old for that. So I'm just like, I'm not doing that. So
and she's not going to the grocery store either.
Is y'all going to the grocery store?
I do. I love it.
Well, you know the old way of
working
finding
from home has messed me up. I'm not gonna lie, it's bad, y'all. I don't
the
like.
The best way to meet people is the grocery store. Anyway, guys,
exactly, Dr. Fauci, it's cozy here. I'm loving it. So I think it's one of those things where it's like you actually have to leave your house to like find people. And all the people that I talk to, they're like, I want to talk to people, and I'm like, we have to go outside. like I actually have to go out and like.
I remember
network,
my friends, gay, straight men and women, would say, "Yo, I gotta hang out. I'm going to Home Depot later on." And I was like, "What you going to Home Depot? What you got going on?" It's like 9:00. What are you going to Home Depot? He's like, "You make the best girls at Home Depot." And I was like, "Home Depot? You mean girls at Home Depot?" And then I have my gay friends that say, "Oh man, I gotta go down to Home Depot." And I was like, "What are you talking about Home Depot?" Well, that's what the dudes are. And I was like, I'm sitting there like, what is Bell? So when I used to have my car back in the day, my little Acura, I said, let me go check out Home Depot. You said get the car out and go to Home Depot and say, "Oh, let's check out who's in Home Depot."
You gotta go where they are. Like I always say, I'm like, maybe somebody delivering one of these packages one day will actually be my husband. I don't know, because like
Jazzy's waiting for the Amazon man.
That's if she opens the door.
One day.
Ding dong. Hello, Amazon.
If she opens the door, Ron, she might just be picking the package up from outside the door.
I do.
Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go so we can do Motivation Monday. This was a great conversation. I mean, so enlightened and so enlightening. And man, Gwendolyn, thank you for popping this one in there. This was really good. This was a good conversation. Yeah. And Brian, we saw you. I was trying to end it so we can get to the Motivation Monday, but it just, we were just doing so well. But this was a good conversation, and I think it spurred off some other ideas for you, Gwendolyn, as in the marriage and conversation, staying in relationships too long. There's there was a lot of gems and tidbits in this, and in the community, man. You guys were sharing some gems.
What is parenting?
What does that
mean?
It's amazing. So I'm letting you go. I'm getting y'all out of this. I'm getting you out of this kitchen right now so I can cook some Motivation Monday.
I'm gonna go pick up a package off the door.
You're gonna go. Jazzy's gonna be like, "Hello, Mr. Amazon."
Do you need a signature?
To be continued. In the next episode, Jazzy finds Amazon. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you. Let's do let's do our wonderful. That was a great conversation. I didn't want to end it. I just couldn't end it. But we are photographers in this community, and so here we are. Let's talk about photography is more than a craft. As you guys go out into the world this week as photographers, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I'm gonna get the screen larger. Hold on a second. Let me get the screen larger. Okay, that's how it's gonna be. Okay, Motivation Monday. Photography is more than a craft. Can I pop this up here a little more? Let me change this orientation. Hold on a second. I want you guys to be able to see it. Now, usually, can y'all see it better? Okay, you don't need me. You don't need my face in there. I thought sure it would pop up on the screen better. Hold on, let me see if I can get this in here right. And yep, that is full screen. Okay, we're in full screen mode. Okay, great. Okay, so Motivation Monday. Photography is more than a craft. The quote this week is from Henry Cartier-Bresson. To photograph, it is to put on the same line of sight the head, the eye, and the heart. Can I say that again? To photograph, it is to put on the same line of sight the head, the eye, and the heart. And it says, this week, let's focus on more than just the technical aspects of photography. Cartier reminds us that the best images come from a perfect alignment of thought, perception, and feeling. It's not just about what you see, but what you feel when you press the shutter. Your head brings the knowledge, the composition, and the technique. Your eye finds the decisive moment, the light, the story unfolding. And your heart injects meaning, emotion, and connection, the soul of the shot. Before you take your next photo, pause. Ask yourself, what am I seeing? What am I feeling? What story am I telling? This week, let's aim to create images that move, inspire, and resonate. Photography is more than a craft. It's an experience, a conversation, and a feeling. And I wanted to just bring that to you as our wonderful photographers are here. And we have photographers in this community, but it's more than just clicking the shutter button. It's more than clicking the shutter button. It's using your head, using your eyes, and using your heart. Now, I can go into deep detail all of this. I'm not. You can find this in Patreon, our Patreon page, and you can dive into this because it is worth it as photographers to not just click the shutter button. Don't just click. Take time with your subject. And I'm just going to do this one more because I think this little cluster is so cool. You're going to use three things. Your head, which brings the knowledge and the composition and the technique. And so many people get caught up in those things, just that one area, but there's more. Your eye, that decisive moment, being able to anticipate the moment. When you see the gentleman getting ready to kiss his girlfriend or his boyfriend, anticipating the moment, the light, making sure the light is in the right spot. Is the light on their face? Is the light in a shadow? Is the light full? Each one of those things, each one of those particular settings of light will tell your story a different way, and how the story is unfolding. All those people that were out marching this weekend past, they got to see the story unfolding. And last but not least, this is my favorite part. Your heart injects meaning, emotion, and connection. The soul of the shot is your heart. Okay, guys. Thank you for joining me today. Again, if you want to, first of all, I would like to say, join our email list, and that way we can stay connected in the future in case we don't have these platforms to stay connected on, but we can still stay connected. Also, if you are looking for an event photographer, reach out. I am an event photographer. We can put you on the schedule, or your family or your team or your corporate environment, whatever it is. The events are my specialty. That even covers news events because I do photojournalism. And also, thank you to the Patreon members who support this platform. And you can find this on our Patreon page. This is our Patreon page, y'all. This is our Patreon page. So you can catch this and all of the stuff that we have here on Patreon right there. Okay? On the Patreon. Your support helps us create amazing content. Become a member. If you're here and you get something out of this platform, support it. That's what we do here. That's how we survive in these online streets, right? So make sure you do that, okay? And I'm going to put this back up, right? Put that up and get rid of that. And like I said, you can find us on Patreon. This is the Patreon page here. And check that out right here. And this is our page. You can see them, all the other Motivation Mondays in the collections. We have the collections, and they have all the Motivation Mondays. Look at all those Motivation Mondays. You want to be motivated? There are all the motivations on photography right here. Okay, so take a tour, as it says. Take a tour. Go through. Okay. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being a part. Thank you, guys, and, well, the gals, the ladies, Elise, Jazzy, and Gwendolyn for sharing so much. What a great conversation today. And get out there and photograph your world. Take some time out and photograph the people around you. Take some time to enjoy the people. Oh, Kimmy sends a super sticker. Woo! Thank you, Kimmy, for the super sticker. For those that don't know, on your on the YouTube channel, you can click on those super stickers with that little dollar bill icon. Thank you for that. For those that for the YouTubers, I see all the love. I see the love. Great show, Ron says. Jazzy, I see the applause from G. And Kaz says, yes, me too, GR. Visual storytelling with narratives. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate Ron. And also, I see here also the chat. Yes, you can see it. Oh, yes, you can see the chat. You can see it in the chat. Look right up below the chat. Okay. So, guys, thank you again. I love doing this. I love supporting this community. I love being a part of this community. We are in this together. Let's do it. Let's do well this week. Let's do well this week. Let's get out there and impact our worlds. Later. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. Make sure you hit the like, the subscribe, and leave a comment on this video. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again. Until I see you next time.